Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is David Haskins, a.k.a. Davey Rich. Give me back my pro wrestling.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
For those who don't know, now you know, baby. This is Hot Rod Biggs, Jared, Jimmy Street. We're going to take them to the limit one more time, baby, right here on Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome one more time to the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast. And it's me, your host, Jimmy Street, as always. And I'm so happy to be here today and thankful that you all are too. Thank you for tuning in and checking us out today. Of course, today's guest is the one and only David Haskins, aka Davey Rich, or Davey Haskins, or however you want to look at it. He had a few names, but a really cool career. Of course, David was part of that awesome feud with the Rock and Roll RPMs and his tag partner, Donnie Rich. They had such a great feud there in Fuller's USA. I can't wait to talk to him about all that and more. Stick around for that in just a little bit. Of course, guys, y'all tuned in last week, and we thank you all so much for that as well. Of course, that was Joe Kazana. Of course, we talked about his legendary history in the business with his granddad, John Kazana, his own career, and then, of course, his son's career with the Country Gentleman in Billy Corgan's NWA. Really cool opportunity there. Thanks again, Joe. All right, guys, coming soon to the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast channel. It's the Austin Idol Power Hour podcast, and that first episode is dropping Tuesday, April 14th. And the good news is you don't have to tune in anywhere different. It'll be right here, or if you're listening on YouTube or Spotify or wherever, it'll be right there. So hopefully y'all enjoy that as much as we are making it. Going to have some really cool things coming up. Speaking of Austin, GrappleCon 4, he's going to be down there in Back to Lutz, April 11th, this weekend, y'all. Like we said before, our buddy Nick in Captain's Corner. April 11th, the Residence Inn, Tampa Suncoast Parkway, 2101 North Point Parkway, Lutz, Florida. Be there, be square. Seriously, y'all, time's running out. It's this weekend. If you don't have plans already, it may be tough, but you can still do it, and tell them Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling sent you. All right, y'all, that's all I've got for the open today. I'm rolling solo with the Freebird rule. We'll be right back with the one and only David Haskins on Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling after these messages.
Hey, my name is Tammy Reynolds. I am the wife of Forsaken Rick Reynolds, that super cool guy that everybody knows and loves. And I represent West Side Sauces. I make sauces, I bottle them, I seal them, I sell them. I have a hot honey sauce, I have a sweet sauce, I have a hot sauce, I have a white sauce that's so yummy you can use it on everything. They are absolutely amazing and I'm so proud of them. We make them from scratch. So go on our website, westsidesauces.com, check out our products, read about our story, and go online and order you some of these yummy sauces. And Rick actually uses all of the sauces because he is a die-hard smoker and griller, and so he likes really good sauces and rubs, and I make them, so how convenient is that for him? Go on our website, westsidesauces.com, order you some samples, and I think you'll thoroughly enjoy them. Thank you, guys. Be blessed.
All right, we are back with another episode of the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast, and it's always good when you have a Rich on the show. And to be honest, this is our first Rich in the one and only Davey Rich, a.k.a. David Haskins. Mr. Rich, Mr. Haskins, whatever we want to call you. How are you doing today, sir?
Man, I am outstanding, but getting better. I couldn't be more exciting to be on the Give Me My Pro Wrestling. There's not a day that goes by that I don't talk to an old school fan who has a memory of watching wrestling with their parents, their friends, their grandparents, the old school, and not everybody is, what you call smart to the business, but They know there's something different. It's not the same. And I love y'all's program. Give me back my pro wrestling, because I think everybody wants it back.
Yes, sir. And it fits that name. I at first thought it fits everybody, but when it came down to
Oh my God.
it's a specific era for us. You know what I mean? It's the era that you wrestled in and all your buddies, basically. So
exactly right. To me, it just goes back when I was growing up. I was a huge fan. The King, Jerry Lawler. I grew up in the Memphis, Tennessee area.
Yeah.
I mean, some people, Joe Namath or Pete Rose or, Jerry West or Michael Jordan was their heroes, but not me. I was a college athlete, but the King, Jerry Lawler, was my hero. That's who I wanted to grow up to be. And, I was fortunate enough to get to travel with him. Matter of fact, last Thursday, I was back through Memphis and had lunch with him and Dave Brown. And I don't know if you remember the referee, Jerry Calhoun. He refereed the Andy Kaufman stuff.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
I mean, he's just about as big a celebrity as the other guys. But
I know.
It's great to see them guys, and the King still kicking and funny as ever. And Dave Brown, I don't know if you know Dave, but Dave and Lance Russell were the announcers, and Dave is actually the weatherman on Channel 5, which is the most popular channel in Memphis. So he was extremely popular too.
And the wrestling had a huge part to do with that channel being so popular. I mean, it was
exactly.
75% rating. I know I may be off a little bit there, but it's close to that. And it's crazy.
I'm going to tell you something. When I started in 1984, the number one show on the air, on TV, period, was called Dallas. It's the one with J.R. Ewing and, who shot J.R. and all that.
Yeah.
Well, it had like a 33 rating. And you're exactly right. I'm not sure the number, but Memphis wrestling doubled that rating. It was astronomical.
It really is.
I've had people say, if you got electricity in the Memphis area from 11 to 12, you're watching pro wrestling.
Oh, man. I love that. I mean, so let's just kick in here. I love this. You're starting perfect. So growing up in the Memphis territory, I guess, how did it feel like your first time, basically like, okay, I've gone through the training, and now I'm starting wrestling and I'm doing it in my hometown. How did that feel?
Well, let me back up a little bit and tell you. So I'm playing football for Memphis State University.
Okay.
A guy pulls up, and he's got 3 carloads of teenage girls following. He's got bleached blonde hair. He's about 6'5", 325. His name was Mike Stark. He was the very first Lord Humongous, and he was working a deal with Lawler, right? Mm-hmm. Well, man, I go running over to him, and I said, man, what are you doing? He goes, I'm a pro wrestler, and my head just started spinning. And I said, How can I get into that? He goes, it's simple. Monday, they had wrestling every Monday night at the Coliseum. He goes, go down to the Coliseum, and back in the back, they have a big fenced-in area. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a little shed there with about 3 policemen. Pull through. Do not stop. If you stop, party's over. Pull through. Wave at them. Because I had the mullet, I was ready, man.
Yeah. I
waved at him. I went, parked my car. He goes, I want you to go in the back door, take your first right, another right, another right, and that's Jerry Lawler's dressing room. Ooh. And tell him I sent you. So I was so dumb. I'll pull in. I wave at these guys. They wave back at me. I go right. I knock on the door, and the King opens up the door. I almost fall out. I said, Mike Stark sent me down here to start getting trained. He goes, who in the hell are you? After a few minutes, and I kind of told him who I was, he started laughing. He thought it was funny. So he introduced me to, I'm not familiar how much you know about Memphis, but there was a guy named the Dream Machine. Troy Graham was his name.
Oh, man. The best promos ever, man. I mean, Austin Idol level promos, you know? Yeah.
Exactly. The next one, I know you know, Coco Beware.
Of course, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and then the last one was the singing cowboy, Donnie Bass.
Donnie Bass,
well,
yes, sir.
all three of them were pretty much the same amount of money to get trained. But Donnie Bass said, hey, you can start tomorrow, pay me your money, and I'll have you ready in 3 months. He goes, you already looked the part.
Yeah.
And he could train me every day. Coco and Troy both could only train me on Mondays after the ring was set up before the matches started. And I was like, that ain't going to be any good. You know, so I went with Donnie Bass. And about a month in, you remember another one, Dirty Rhodes?
Yes.
Roger Smith?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, that's Dusty Rhodes is number 2.
Right.
So Donnie goes, what you need to do is ride around the loop. There's Memphis on Monday night, Louisville Tuesday night, Evansville, Indiana on Wednesday night, Spot Show Thursday, Spot Show Friday, Memphis TV Saturday morning, Nashville Saturday night, and Jackson, Tennessee Sunday night. 7 days a week, you know, working 8 times. We get to Louisville, and for some reason, Lawler had to fly up. Well, they lost his bags. He's irate.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, King, I said, man, if anybody in this whole building's the same size, it's me and you. I don't know if you've ever, you know, when I first started, I had the long tights, exactly like him. But everything, it was the stupidest thing I ever did, but it helped me, as you'll hear. So I said, man, I'd be honored if you wore my stuff for your match. He goes, you got to be kidding. And he goes, this stuff's all iron. And he goes, you've never even had this on. I said, no, sir. I said, and he goes, I can't do that. And I said, yes, you can. And sure enough, now I had my jacket. It was so new that nothing was embroidered on it yet.
Right.
So, he wore everything, and he said, hey, I'm going to keep this bag. You be at Memphis TV today. You'll be booked. You know, he was the booker, of course. So I go down there, and he had my bag and all that. And so I'm sitting there. You know, they got the heels in one room and the baby faces in another. So they called me and a guy named Johnny Wilhoit into another room, and there sat Lance Russell, Jerry Lawler, and Jimmy Hart. And, Jimmy Hart and Jerry Lawler hated each other. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, I'm going to see a fight. That's how I wasn't even smart to the business. And so me and Johnny Wilhoit wrestled Eddie Hot Stuff Gilbert and Iron Mike Sharp.
Wow.
And Jimmy Hart was their manager.
Okay.
So, man, he had done a real good job training me as Memphis TV. I was scared to death because, out of everybody on that TV, I don't think none of those, most of those guys were just coming through trying to get to WCW or WWE. And, that was, I think everybody who ever turned into anybody at least came through Memphis for a few weeks. I mean, you might can say, well, there's a couple guys, but I don't know who they are. Because most of them kicked my butt right there on that Memphis TV. But so we had a good match, man, and Eddie Gilbert was the best, man. And we wound up becoming like best friends, and that was the first day. And he goes, man, how long you been working? I said, that's my first match ever. And he went nuts. He couldn't believe it. So, Eddie would come and go from Memphis a lot. Next thing I knew, he was gone, and he was over at Mid-South, booking for Bill Watts. Yeah. So he calls me and says, hey, there's another guy named Troy Martin, a.k.a. Shane Douglas. Man, I'd like to put y'all together as my underneath babyface tag team. So have you heard of Carl Fergie?
Oh, yeah, definitely. King Carl Fergie. Yes.
Yeah, King Carl Fergie. He's Jerry Lawler's first cousin. He's Honky Tonk Man's first cousin.
Okay.
And he came and picked me up in Memphis, and Eddie had assigned him to teach me and Shane the ropes. So Shane left his car at my house and in Memphis, and we, I think the Superdome in New Orleans was our first show together. And
wow.
Man, they pushed the daylights out of us, man. I mean, you just can't even imagine. Eddie really liked both of us. I tell you how fast it went. Have you ever heard of the preacher, the evangelist named Joel Osteen?
Yeah.
Okay, Joel Osteen preaches in a building called the Summit in Houston.
Right.
That used to be where the Houston Rockets played. Well,
okay.
At that time, that's where the Rockets were playing, and we would do our real big shows. And this was a combined UWF / NWA, WCW. I think they were still NWA then. Right. The main event was like Ric Flair against Dusty, and then there's the Road Warriors against somebody. And you come on down the line, and our guys were Sting and Rick Steiner, the Lightning Express, Brad Armstrong, and Tim Horner were the top babyface tag team. So me and Shane are the second match. And, man, we wrestled Tiger Conway Jr. and Pez Watley and tore the house down. Of course,
wow.
You're only as good as your opponents are.
Right.
And, I mean, both of those guys were, they'd both been top workers in territories and all that. Well, everything clicked. And we get back, man, I'm sitting there, and me and Shane's all excited. A little referee named Pee Wee Anderson, he comes, he says, Dusty wants to see y'all in his office. I'm like, oh, my gosh. So they lead us up there, and Dusty's office was one of the sky boxes. So he could sit there and watch the matches and, do his thing. But we walk in, you got to remember this was probably 1986.
Uh-huh.
And it's Dusty and ZZ Top in this skybox. And I'm like, really freaking out now. He goes, Shane and Davey, we going to make y'all the next rock and roll express, baby. And I mean, so we're on cloud nine, so it didn't quite turn out like that. But, we had a good little run together. And so Brad Armstrong, when Eddie booked, he booked a lot of, and you don't see this much anymore, a lot of babyface against babyface matches, a lot of scientific wrestling and all that. And I mean, in my opinion, Brad Armstrong was one of the best ever. How, he didn't get a major push with somebody, I'll never know. He was always steady and strong and all of that. But I mean, man, he was respected in the dressing room. Everybody liked him. He had a great build on him, and buddy, he could go. And so he told his dad about me. We know his dad is over in the Continental territory, and he was the booker.
Oh, well, yeah.
Continental had just sold the South part to a guy named David Woods. So Ron Fuller was going to open up the Knoxville area and go about a 200-mile radius around there. And it was called USA Championship Wrestling.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
So, Bob Armstrong calls me, and he says, baby, how would you like to come up to Knoxville? I'm going to put you with Johnny Rich, and you'll be fighting against Rock and Roll RPMs in the main event every night for the championship belt.
I love it.
I didn't ask him how much it paid. I just said what day I need to be there. And so that's kind of how the Davey Rich deal happened. And it's all between, because of Bob Armstrong, first Brad, then Bob, and then we got up there and Scott Armstrong, me, Johnny, and Scott, they called us the Party Boys.
Oh, yeah.
And we did a lot of 6-10 stuff. But Scott broke his leg against Nelson Royal, and it was a legitimate break. And so he was out for 8 to 10 weeks. And before he even got back, Ron sold to David Woods we probably had a year up there in Knoxville, but he sold to David Woods, so they never rekindled him as part of us again. So and Eddie was Booker of Continental, so we went back down to there, and it was I think Alan Martin was the manager, and it was Mike Davis and Masa Chono, who became a legend over there in Japan.
Oh yeah,
that's who we wrestle against just about practically every night. Sometimes Dirty White Boy and Jerry Stubbs. Jerry Stubbs did a couple different gimmicks, but that's kind of the brief little history of my beginning. And there was a WOW territory out of Pensacola, and Bob Sweetan and Ron Starr were kind of, yes, exactly, Rip Tyler, those guys. I'm going to tell you, man, I had probably a 6 or 8 week program with a guy you probably heard of, Bob Holly.
Right, yeah.
And, man, and I mean, at that point, we're both pretty young and, pretty unknown, but, man, I've heard Jimmy Cornette, compare him to Bobby Eaton. And I mean, he was really that good.
Huge compliment.
That guy, oh my gosh, Bobby Eaton, man, woo, he was one of a kind. But one of the funny stories, I got one that's hard to believe. So
please,
me and Shane, and Shane was trained by Dominique DiNucci out of Pittsburgh.
Okay,
he's one of the old WWF stars.
Yeah.
And so the person who got trained with him was a guy by the name of Mick Foley.
Oh.
Okay. And so Cactus Jack, right? So
yeah.
I know him more as Cactus Jack because, I was kind of finished up before he started all the Psycho and all that stuff. But so he comes down, and, back in the old days, if you were in a territory, you might come and ride with one of your buddies because almost every night somebody didn't show up, somebody was hurt, and they'd say, hey, we can use you. And, all you want to do is, get the booker to see you and see if he can say, hey, we'll start you, But so we go into that. I can't remember that. It's in Fort Worth. It's their famous building with the Von Erichs wrestled and all that, not the Sportatorium. But this is like, not in Dallas, but over in Fort Worth, 30 miles away. So we go in, and me and Shane are the second or third match, and Cactus Jack was with us. And I think it'd be safe to say, I'm pretty sure he's a millionaire now.
Yeah, I would say, yeah.
Chris Adams had a trainee with him by the name of Steve Williams / Stone Cold Steve Austin.
What?
And yes, and Eddie wouldn't book Cactus Jack. He wouldn't book Steve Austin. And then Rick Steiner was Sting's partner, and Eddie was their manager. And this was Scott. I mean, Scott must have been fresh out of college. I mean, he wasn't freaky looking.
Right.
But he definitely was put together. But I mean, his biceps didn't look like somebody's legs. They actually almost looked like a human's biceps, but they were very big.
Yeah.
So those 3 guys who, if I was just guessing, I couldn't guarantee it, and I hadn't seen their bank account. I'm almost positive they're all 3 millionaires. They were using us, but they would not use them that night. So I thought that was something. That just, the one thing I always tell people when they're trying to get into the business, you just never know. Because again, Mick Foley, I wouldn't say he ever looked good.
Right.
He had a look to him. And I didn't, I just went and saw him, 2-3 weeks ago do his little comedy deal.
Yeah.
And he can talk, but he's not a Jerry Lawler or Ric Flair or, somebody, who, or Jimmy Hart, somebody who really, really, really talk. Don't get me wrong. I am very glad I went and saw his show. It was excellent. I mean, when I went, I just went to introduce a guy to him.
Yeah.
Because the guy's daughter played on my daughter's volleyball team. I was doing it for a favor.
Yeah.
But when I did it, I was extreme. I mean, it was entertaining. And if he comes through your town, believe me, it's worth it. I mean,
Okay.
it's like $49. And I mean, I'm telling you, it was worth it. It was extremely good, so,
that's
I
awesome.
was fortunate. I got to wrestle a lot of people their first match. On Memphis TV, I wrestled Sting and the Ultimate Warrior, their first match
How
ever
was
on
that?
Memphis TV. You know what? They were extremely big and extremely strong, and I've never been press slammed 10 times in a match before or since. But, I mean, Sting went on to, he was down in UWF or Mid-South,
Right.
and he would actually let me and Shane sleep in his spare bedrooms. I mean, his wife came from money, and they raised some kind of Arabian horses or something like that. They were from California.
Yeah.
But this guy was extremely generous. Every time I see him, he goes, "Hey, that's my first match," So, I mean, he's one of my favorites. Big Sid. Sid Vicious, he was from Marion, Arkansas, right across the river from Memphis, and he just showed up at the Coliseum one night. Just like I was telling you, I would usually go and have my stuff because I knew somebody wouldn't show up.
Right.
And so Lawler goes, "Get your stuff on. I want you to go out and wrestle this guy for 4 or 5 minutes and come back and tell me what he is, how he is." Now, he'd been trained by a guy, and I'm having a senior in the Boot Hill of Missouri, I think Kennett, Missouri. And so he Tojo Yamamoto, who's a legendary guy from way back.
Oh, yeah.
He and Sid had some kind of outing, kind of got into it. So another guy finished training, and I mean, he's just so imposing. And, sure enough, Lawler put that Lord Humongous gimmick on him. He didn't stay a long time in Memphis.
Yeah.
He actually went down and they put him with Shane Douglas in the Continental area, and they did a tag team deal. And, I mean, 6 months later, he's in, WCW. And, I mean, some people, got good things to say. Some people got bad. But, I mean, I thought he was a very agile, big guy. I mean, I thought he could, I thought he did everything good enough.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure. Yeah.
And I think they're putting him in the Hall of Fame this year. He passed away last year, which is tragic. I mean, I'm just talking to Donnie Rich today, and we're talking about Dennis Condrey, passed away.
Oh, man. Well, speak on Dennis for a second.
Okay.
Do you mind? I don't care.
Dennis, Dennis, when Continental was on its last leg, Robert Fuller was the booker, and they were having, just about all the territories were gone. And you're either with WCW or WWE or WWF, right, which I kind of get it mixed up when they switch. But Johnny had taken a role with them where he was driving the ring around, and then he'd get kids to put it up and let them in free. And he was making way more doing that than he would have been if he was wrestling.
Wow.
So he wasn't even wrestling. So I think Tom Pritchard was supposed to be working against Dennis, but something happened. And so Robert called me, and he made me a very good offer to do Columbus, Mississippi, Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Knoxville 3 days in a row, and working the main event. And Dennis Condrey was the Continental heavyweight champion.
Okay.
And man, he used like a DDT, towards that end, that was his finish. And man, and Knoxville is my favorite place. I'm a big Tennessee fan.
Oh yeah.
And I just always, I'm from Memphis, and I'd love to have more success there, but it just wasn't in the cards. I did get to travel around with King for a few years, so that's good enough for me there. But Knoxville's where I really got my push, really got to do good. And let me tell you, when they started our music and I came out, they announced Tom wasn't there. It was like a little hush came over the building. And then they started my music, and the people just went crazy. And that Dennis Condrey, we went about 30 minutes. And for 29 minutes and 50 seconds, you would have bet money that I was going to win that championship. That guy made me look like the best. I mean, I've never, ever, and it's all about who you're wrestling against.
Right.
And that dude, he sucked in his pride, and he knew he had a job to do, and his job was to make it look like I actually had a chance. And, man, towards the end, I thought I had a chance. And I knew. So, but, man, I'll always respect him. And I had the pleasure of wrestling him a few times, with Bobby Eaton and Cornette managing them. The most I wrestled Bobby was when they were the Heavenly Bodies. Me and Johnny were the first tag team that they kind of fed to Tom and Stan Lane. Okay. And, remember Smoky Mountain Wrestling?
Oh, I love Smoky Mountain Wrestling. That's actually like my favorite. So, yeah.
There you go. Well, hey, it was good. I mean, I was just talking to a guy from Knoxville who does some podcasts, and he's still part of the TV up there. And he was talking about the Buddy Landell, Shawn Michaels match at one of the pay-per-views. Oh. And they as at the Knoxville Coliseum, and they tore the building down. I mean, Buddy Landell, like him or not, probably had more talent than anybody. He just, his own worst enemy was Buddy Landell.
In his own pinky, he had as much talent as anybody, and
oh my gosh, he could talk, he could wrestle, he could make you love him, he could make you hate him. The best ones, the Jerry Lawlers, the Ric Flairs, the Shawn Michaels, the Triple H's, the Stone Cold, even Hulk Hogan at the end. I mean,
right.
If you can be a heel one week and a baby face the next, you'd have a long career. In the wrestling business. And the very best ones, I didn't come up with the phrase, but they got that it factor, man. And, that's even, the Rock, Stone Cold, even some of those guys, that, I guess that's still 20 years ago. And I went maybe twice in the last 3 years. Brian Armstrong or Road Dogg Jesse James or Brian James, whatever you want to call him. He was a head writer up till 2 months ago.
Right.
And, man, all I had to do is call him, and he'd get me tickets. And, they'd treat me like a king. And I tell you, man, some of those guys, Triple H and some of them, I wrestled Triple H the first time as Terror Rising in WCW. He's about 190 pounds.
Tell me about that, please.
You could just tell he had something about him.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought he had a good look then.
Oh yeah.
A few years later, I seen him in WWE, and he's 100 pounds heavier, and looks like Hercules. And but still, through all of that, gaining that weight, to gaining that size. I mean, that guy was a professional, man. He could wrestle. He could talk. Those guys, they live their character. I think that's the difference. Everybody goes, well, why is it so different now? Well, Dusty Rhodes was Dusty Rhodes. He didn't walk in the back one day and then say, hey, here's your character. Mm-hmm. Or Macho Man was the Macho Man. They didn't say, hey, here's your character. Jerry Lawler was the king.
Right.
Again, all these guys live those characters 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So you didn't, now these poor guys, they look great. I mean, if you look at, if they showed a roster now compared to a roster in 1980, you might have one muscular guy. Now they all look like bodybuilders. They look great. They can do gymnastics. I mean, way better shape, way better athletes. But I just don't know. And I'm sure they love the business, but I think some of them are probably doing characters that they didn't dream or didn't grow up wanting to be.
Right.
And they're doing it just thinking that the next step, I mean, I know that Steve Williams became Steve Austin, became Stunning Steve Williams, became a Hollywood Blonde, became the Ringmaster, and then became Stone Cold. So sometimes you don't hit it on your first go, but if they can sense it, and if they know, I mean, first off, you got to be able to wrestle.
Mm-hmm.
Then
Right.
you got to have communication skills. And I mean, if they can sense that, sometimes they just need to tweak the character a few times, and
Right.
you got to remember, say Jerry Lawler's booking the territory, man, he's having, he did come up with the Rock and Roll Express I know of. I know he came out with Kamala.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
you could probably pay me a bunch more. So,
Right.
I mean, he came up with characters, but I mean, I guess if guys would have known, would have been more creative, if you came up with a good gimmick and something that would get over, but some of the stuff, they did during that Attitude Era, if you'd have done in 1984, when I was first starting, you'd have got arrested. You wouldn't even get out of the TV station. So it's gone back and forth. And, but, man, I enjoyed Steve Austin. I enjoyed The Rock. I hadn't seen enough of Cody Rhodes, but I know that he's over, and I do see his T-shirts, and I still travel every week. I see his T-shirts in the airports and stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't really appreciate The Undertaker back then like I do now. Now
Right.
that I've seen, and heard some of these, man, I love, even as a guy who wrestled basically off and on for 30 years, I enjoy these documentaries that they put on.
Yeah,
And
totally.
I didn't enjoy the Von Erich movie that good.
No, that was
because
bad.
they had that small guy, the smaller at Zac Efron and Kerry. And don't get me wrong, Zac Efron's put together, but Kerry Von Erich looked like Tarzan, man. He came and if
He was like 6'3", right?
Johnny and David Rich, yeah, he came and teamed with us for 10 days. If you'll go on YouTube, put Johnny, Davey Rich, and Kerry Von Erich wrestling, you'll see a match with me, us three against Chono, Alan Martin, and Mike Davis. And that's pretty much the same match we did around the territory.
Yeah.
Man, this is after he'd hurt his foot.
Oh.
Man, he was perfect. He was awesome. We rode together. We made, in the wrestling business back then, you're around your wrestling partners more than you are your wife.
What we've heard.
Like your wife, you got to go to work.
Yeah.
But when you go to work, they're still right there beside you. So it was something else. So when you see these guys like the Rock and Roll Express, or not necessarily brothers like the Steiners, they grew up together. But I mean, anybody who got put, Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane, or Bobby Eaton and Dennis Connery, believe me, those guys have to, really, be in, for each other and, be there for each other. I mean, it's a special relationship. I still talk to Shane about once a week.
How's he doing?
I love talking to him. He's doing awesome, man. He still does some shows. He does a podcast. He's something else. I mean, I think he had a great career. He never quite achieved what I thought he was capable of in WCW and WWE. But man, it gets political a little bit. And, I mean, and he was a little bit different. He's from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and he's a little bit more sensitive than me or Carl, being from Tennessee.
Right.
We're a little bit more laid back. He's a little bit more high strung. Man, I wouldn't trade him for anything. He was awesome. And I really wish that we could have seen what was going to happen. But about a month after I went up to do the Davey Rich deal, I turned the TV on, and there he is with Ricky Steamboat, the world tag team champions. And I'm like, man, I wonder if that could have been me if I'd have just stayed there. But I wouldn't trade the Davey Rich deal and, getting to know Tommy Rich and Johnny Rich like I was able to. At my age, I knew of Tommy Rich, and I knew he was excellent, and I knew he was a former world champion. But till I teamed with him in some of the smaller towns in Virginia, North Carolina, and Eastern Kentucky, and Marietta, Georgia, man, people love that dude, man. He had almost a Elvis type deal. And you really got to go back in those late 70s, that Georgia Championship wrestling, man.
Whew.
He was wildfire, man.
Totally.
His blonde hair flying. I'm telling you, man, he was definitely one of a kind.
Oh, man.
And, he still never had a real job. He still, him and I talk to Doug Gilbert all the time. So Doug and Tommy do a lot of stuff together. They do autograph sessions. Doug books a lot of towns, and Jerry Lawler used to do all of them until he had that last stroke.
Right.
He just he's not able to wrestle, but he does still do some autographs, and he does some of the Comic Con stuff. And I tell you what, I guess it was a week or so ago. I think a week ago today. Man, I spent about 5 hours with him, man. He showed me all through his house. He's got like Superman and Batman collectibles you just can't even imagine. He's got a Batmobile, and then he had a whole room dedicated to his art. And when I tell you this guy's an artist, he actually almost stopped wrestling and went to work for Marvel Comics. Is how good an artist he was. He just... Sometimes when you got that it deal, it gives you so much confidence that, he was a great athlete too. He played softball constantly. We had a flag football team together, and he just, he was an all-around athlete, and a lot of the wrestlers were, again, what a fraternity.
We'll be right back with more Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
Captain's Corner is ready to turn up the heat as winter thaws and we get closer to the spring season. We are excited to welcome the legendary Haku for a public signing in the month of March at the big event in New York. Mail-in is accepted and we'll also have 8x10 photos and cards available. Then on Saturday, April 11th, the spring breakout event of the year takes place at the Residence Inn right outside Tampa. It's Glory Days Grapple Con 4. Featuring Jerry the King Lawler, Dirty Dutch Mantel, The Mountie, Austin Idol, Nikita Koloff, and over 15 additional other stars. This is one event that's sure to thaw you out from the cold. Tickets available now at tickettree.com. Make sure to follow us at Captain's Corner Wrestling on Instagram and Facebook. Cheers to the working man.
Transmission trouble. Jerry, please don't hit me, please. I'm on my way to Denny Dunn's right now. I know Dunn's will fix my transmission right in the original price, but this is my wife's car, Jerry, and it just won't go. It won't go? No, it won't.
Well, they got free towing if they do the job, but I'm going to save you the trouble.
Yeah.
Turn around, hold that wheel.
Yes, sir.
You want to go to Dunn's?
Yes, sir.
Go.
And you better hurry on over to Dunn's 2 locations, Ketchum at Airways and Jackson at Wales.
Remember, I'll fix your transmission right and at a reasonable price.
The last Comic Con I went to was in Gonzales, Louisiana. I got to see Ron Simmons.
Yeah.
Ron started out down with us down that UWF deal. Hacksaw Jim Duggan was there. Jake the Snake. Kevin Von Erich, the remaining Von Erich, he was there. Rikishi was there, and then Mankind / Cactus Jack. I can't think of all of his different gimmicks. But, again, and one more time, because I just still blown away. If you ever see where his little comedy tour, I can't remember, they got a name for it.
Okay.
Where that's coming through. Do yourself a favor and go check that out.
I will.
You know, I mean, it really, really, really. I mean, he's got to have a website that advertises that. But
oh yeah.
That was really, really, really good. But yeah, man, that's kind of some of the highlights of my deal. Like I said, I did it from January '84. I wrestled The Rock on his. Now, Steve Lombardi wrestled in his first match ever, like in Corpus Christi, for WWE.
Yeah.
But then he went to Memphis and did the Memphis deal. So I started back doing WWE taping. So me, him, Tony Williams, and Reggie B. Fine all loaded up in the van. And this was when I've seen it in one of his books. It says David Haskins wrestled him on Monday Night Raw, in his first tryout match. But I know he wrestled Lombardi, but I don't think he'd been trained at all. I don't think anything. But in Memphis, working with Jerry Lawler's son, Brian, and, working with Jerry Lawler, I know he really, really, really made huge strides. And, I guess the rest is history,
Yeah, yeah.
He went from being worth $7. That's the name of his production company. $7 to his name, and he just became a billionaire last year. So he's doing something right.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe it was that match.
Oh yeah, well, maybe he might remember me someday.
Oh, I bet he does.
You know what though? All the stuff that he's done for some of the older wrestlers, you really want to know what wrestling was in my era. Watch The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke.
Oh man!
Whoever make that movie, there's lingo used in there that only the wrestlers use, and that is just about as close to being the real deal as I've ever in my life seen. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah,
I was stunned. That's unfortunately, man, and like even Chris Jericho, when I was kind of wrapping up, I broke my leg in Smoky Mountain, and I think the night that I broke it, Chris Jericho, and you might could help me. They like opened the card. He was a tag team.
Thrill
He had
Seekers.
another little guy.
Lance Storm.
Yes. And man, they were good, man, real good.
Oh yeah.
And so I met him, but not since he really took off. But man, I already paid for Kamala's funeral, Doink the Clown's funeral. I mean, this is just a guy who loves the business, and there's no way he ever met these guys. At his age, he just couldn't. There's no way he could have met them, And to do that, it just, it's really something because those guys, did pave the way.
Oh,
I mean, there's a lot of people drove a lot of miles, broke a lot of bones, to lay it out to where it is now. Even though it's a whole different product, it still started, from the pro wrestling, the foundation of these guys. And for a guy like that to not even know those guys, and there's no telling how many people he's helped. Unfortunately, a lot of the wrestlers are, have addictive personalities. You can get addicted to working out. You can get addicted to wrestling.
Right.
But some of them, it might be alcohol or drugs, and and some of them, I mean, it's just such a depressing deal to go from going into a restaurant where everybody knows you to going in and you're having a chat. Man, this used to be me, and showing them a picture of your phone and all that. I mean, it's kind of a bummer, man. Nobody recognized you to where, used to you'd be complaining, man, I wish they'd leave me alone. And, then you're saying, I wish they'd bother me just a little bit.
Just a little. Come on, man.
Man. But some of the guys that, who are like Brad Armstrong was one of the ones. I mean, no matter who you talk to, I think they'll tell you he was the funniest guy in the dressing room, the most liked guy, and he could go, buddy. He could wrestle. He could fight. He could wrestle. I mean, he had the fire. He had everything, you know. I mean, so some of them just never quite reach their potential, and you always try to kind of wonder why, because, you know, all those promotions were always looking for the next big thing, you know. So
right.
You know, it just, you know, it's just kind of a mystery to me. But I tell you what, it's the best. You know, I probably did it, I'd say 20 years full time altogether, and probably had 5,000 matches, you know.
Man.
But
let's name them all real quick.
Yeah. Some days when I get up in the morning, I'm not too excited, but man, you know, talking to Johnny today, I talked to Carl about once a week. Like I said, Jane, Doug, Gilbert. I mean, just relationships and memories that, you know, they'll last forever, you know. And
Amen.
Seeing Jerry Lawler last week, Bill Dundee a couple of months ago, it just, you know, like I said, you know, just lifelong relationships, times that, you know, just, you know, never be able to replace.
Yeah. So I want to play a little game here we call the name game, and all it is it's a first, like it's a name association. So you hear a name and you just if you have a little story or just something small about them. I want to go over a few names here. So obviously, you know, we're going to go way back on this one. So early in your time in Memphis, you worked Kareem Muhammad. Can you tell us about how it was working with him?
You know what? A gentle giant, if I had to just say one thing, I mean, you know, I know he had some issues. If I'm, you know, tell me if I'm wrong. There was a Zambui Express, right?
Right. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. But man, Ray, Candy, and I mean, both of those guys, they are so vicious looking.
Yeah.
And man, one night in Nashville, Tennessee, they were beating me down, and I can't remember what had happened with my partner, but man, you know, I think Billy Travis and Tracy came out and saved me, Tracy Smothers. But let me tell you, man, I thought they were going to have to get the police, man. These people were going crazy. You know, when they were getting me real good, a fan jumped up the ring, and of course, these guys were monsters. And I mean, they just threw him out like a twig, you know. And, but man, you know, that's when you really, really do that you had something good going. It's very believable. You know, a lot of sympathy for me, and I mean, a lot of hatred for them boys. I mean, they were big dudes, man.
Definitely. Yeah.
Big dudes.
Yeah. And again, another guy you worked early on who's one of the greatest of all time is Randy Savage. Tell us about Randy.
Oh, man. Out of my first 20 days, 16 or 17 of them were against Randy Savage.
Whoa.
Now, on Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, he'd be against Lawler. But in the spot shows, on TV, man, and me and him clicked pretty good, too. We worked out together some.
Yeah.
He met Miss Elizabeth at a place called Centay's Athletic Club. And that was a big, fancy gym that a doctor had opened in Lexington, Kentucky. And I don't even think he had asked her out yet. And, man, he was talking about it. And, you know, needless to say, you know, she was beautiful.
Yeah,
you know?
Of course,
and,
yeah.
But, yeah, man, he was very, very athletic. And, you know, I kind of got spoiled because that's my first, 15, 16 matches. And, man, my whole rest of my career, I didn't wrestle many guys with that kind of athletic ability. I mean, that guy could do everything. He could do anything he wanted. He could turn it on, and when he wanted to go, the best match I ever had with him in this place is called Stanford, Kentucky, 20 minutes right outside of Lexington. And, that's where he was from.
Right.
I'm not sure. Maybe he even went to high school there, but for some reason, that joker, we went for 30, 40 minutes. And maybe we just had to fill in some time. Maybe somebody didn't show up. I can't remember the details. But I mean, for a kid just learning what he's doing, and I mean, by the time that match is over, I knew I could do it if I was, if I was dancing with the right person, I knew I could do it, So it's just a matter, just about anybody can do it if you're wrestling a Jerry Lawler or Ric Flair or one of those great workers. But, the whole key is, are you willing to study the game and learn it good enough that you can take a young guy, like that. I know you've heard Flair or Lawler or any of them could work with a mop handle.
Right.
Well, I mean, again, that was that kind of made the difference in between, if you, turned into something or, if you were gone in a month.
Yeah. So that famous,
a lot of them come and go.
Oh yeah, definitely. That famous match he had with Ricky Steamboat at WrestleMania 3, we learned much later on that was all basically done in the back, and that was rare for that time. Did he also try that with you or do that with you, or was it all walk and talk?
Yeah, it's all walk and talk. You got to remember, only time that you could talk to the guys
Good point.
was in the Memphis Mid-South Coliseum. And these high school gyms and some of these other smaller places, I mean, man, if you got caught talking to the heel, somebody like me, they'd send me home immediately.
Good point.
They'd say, "Hey, kid, that's it." Kayfabe was wide open, until you might know what year Vince kind of smartened everybody up, but it's something over the athletic license or something like that.
Right.
Again, I mean, that's what made the believability. I mean, but now that, Randy Savage was definitely one of a kind.
For sure. Well, okay, so this next one I've got here is one of the most underrated tag teams in Memphis, the Memphis Vice, Jerry Bryant and Big Lou Winston.
Oh, my God. Jerry Bryant's the only person that Jerry Lawler ever trained.
Right. Yeah.
They went to high school at Treadwell High School together. And my sister worked for Chrysler Parts. The big parts depot. Well, Jerry Bryant worked. I mean, he had a great job, like over the parts or service at the biggest Jeep Chrysler dealership in Memphis. So he always made such good money that he never went full time. But him and Big Lou were both excellent. I mean, excellent. And, the black and white deal, with the Memphis thing. And Jerry Bryant, there's not a doubt in my mind that had Jerry Bryant woke up one day and them cut him loose of his regular job, and he called Jerry Lawler and said, "Hey, I want to go full time," that he could have gone as far as he could talk, he could wrestle, he had a very athletic look to him. Just another guy that, another person, King Cobra, who's still involved with Memphis wrestling.
Yeah.
I mean, man, Cobra invented something for the waste treatment plant. Man, he got like $3 million and then $1 million a year.
Whoa.
Are you going to walk away from that to make $100,000?
No,
I mean,
I'm not.
He's a multi-millionaire, but Bill White would bring him in, to wrestle, to team up with JYD or go against, Ted DiBiase, and he'd be on top. He beat Jerry Lawler before for the belt and the crown.
Yeah.
So I mean, he just never saw the need to do it full time. And he was telling me one day that he went out to do a weekend deal with Jim Crockett and them, and for some reason they thought he was coming in to be part of the territory and like put him over, like Wahoo or one of their top guys. And, he comes to the back. He's like, "Hey, you guys know I go home tomorrow, right?" They're like, "What?" So I'm sure the next day he was returning the favor. But I mean, him and he had a little protege by the name of Ira Reese.
Yeah.
And man, many a time me and him traveled to Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana to do a little spot show together. But, man, that's another, just unsung guy who could have, who knows what they could have done. Right situation,
Yeah, that's a great point. Okay, on this next one, we're going to jump to the spring of '88 here, and we want to hear about one of the guys that, honestly, I've just said it to another guest, that they could put a statue up in East Tennessee, Ron Fuller.
Man, Ron Fuller, once I got there and kind of had a couple matches, and, man, he really took a shine to me. And, I mean, him and Bob together, basically created and made Davey Rich what he is. I still talk to Ron pretty regular. He's very imposing, big 6'9", and
6'9".
The list of people he wrestled was like a who's who. I mean, this guy's wrestled Jack Briscoe, Harley Race, Ric Flair, and probably the biggest angle they ever did is when Bob Armstrong turned heel against him in Mobile, Alabama. They still say that, it just, it drew, they sold out everywhere. No matter where they went, Bob Armstrong as a heel against Ron Fuller sold out.
Oh, no doubt.
So it was like one of the biggest angles ever. If you ever go on YouTube and put that, Bob Armstrong, turning heel or bad guy or whatever, man, it's just the reaction. Number one, the people are so stunned, I don't think they knew what to do. Because I think it was Ron against Flair, and Bob was the referee, and he cheated to help Flair.
Yeah.
And, man, the people just couldn't believe it, So, again, Bob Armstrong, Ron Fuller, Robert Fuller's, pretty awesome. Jimmy Golden. It's funny, I actually see Jimmy more than anybody when I go to Knoxville because he lives real close to a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And to hear Johnny Rich worked at a gas station in high school, and Jimmy Golden came in there, and that was like his hero.
Oh,
and, man, he said for weeks that's all he could talk about. And people don't know that, because the territories, if you didn't grow up in Alabama or Panhandle of Florida, everybody had their little section of their territory. The Carolinas had the Mid-Atlantic. Georgia had Georgia Championship. Florida had Florida. Continental, Memphis. Mid-South. And if you weren't in that territory, you don't realize how big a star these guys really. Junkyard Dog. Every time somebody finds out I wrestled Junkyard in Louisiana and not half of Mississippi, Junkyard Dog was the man. And it's 100%, the fan favorite in Mid-South.
Mm-hmm. Amen to that.
So,
Okay, so the next one I have, and this one I guess is more of a question than a name here, but let's go with this. So obviously you're in Knoxville now. So tell us about the famous Party Boys video. So Johnny pulls up in a Porsche, then all y'all hop in Scott Armstrong's minivan. So you go from a Porsche to a minivan, and then go party in the minivan. So the Party Boys and minivans don't seem to go together as well as the Porsche. But anyway, tell us about that.
You didn't read the tag on that van. It said, this van is a rockin', don't bother knocking.
Yes. Love it.
Now, that Porsche was actually Johnny's cousin. Johnny had a cousin that when the school was out, we would pay him and live in his apartment. He had a plush apartment right there by the Tennessee campus. Mm-hmm. And so that was his Porsche, so he let Johnny do that. Scott, that was Scott's van, and that's what we made all the trips in.
That's awesome.
Bullet Bob, Scott, Johnny, and Doug Furnace.
Mm-hmm.
We would all load into that. Wherever we were that night, that's where we went.
Yeah.
So, but the video was done at a place called Trimmers on Kingston Pike, and I was just talking to that guy yesterday, and he's like, where did y'all get all those girls? And I have, I'm going to assume that they advertise, be on TV. And
Oh,
man, it was like
they just followed y'all
John.
around. Be honest.
Oh yeah. We just had a bus load the whole time. But no, that's a night that's still talked about amongst the party boys.
We love that. We love that video. Okay.
It was so much fun.
Yeah. Okay. So, we are getting close to the end now. I got to bring up a couple more names. So the main name that we really need to talk about, and we've talked about him a little, of course, throughout the show, but we just had Tommy Lane on the show. Of course, unfortunately, we can't have Mike Davis, but man, the rock and roll, they were you guys. It was like you all and the RPMs were like the rock and roll in the midnight, man. Y'all had it together and talk.
Let me tell you about Tommy Lane, and I'm sure he went through his whole history. He was trained by Archie Goldie of the Mongolian Stomp.
I know. It's
so
awesome.
Somebody who could make it through that training is a man anyway. And as the years have gone by, man, me and him might be closer than anybody.
That's cool.
I respect that. We beat each other's brains out. We had to have 1,000 matches with those guys. Had to. And we did 30-minute Broadways, 60-minute Broadways, and 90-minute Broadways.
Wow.
And to do that at that time, to go 90 minutes without the fans just getting up and walking out, man, that's pretty awesome. And that, back then the Hills called the batches. That right there is the most underrated tag team. Man, those guys, every place they went that I saw them wrestle somebody, it was awesome. Yeah. Even down in Memphis against Jeff Jarrett and Billy Travis. Against Von Eriks and what world class. Man, those guys were the best. And I'll never forget, Tommy's in Florida, so I've stayed in contact with him. But man, I heard he had gotten cancer, and so I called and talked to him. And then somebody called me and told me he died. So I write this basically a eulogy.
I know.
I'm telling you, he's like one of my favorite people ever. Yeah. And I'm like, write this eulogy about him, and next thing you know, somebody calls and says, no, that ain't right. I finally get him the answer. I said, man, if you want to see my eulogy to you, just look on Facebook. And he started laughing. But, that guy is one of the most positive. Man, glass half full. It's never half empty. And he's the top boss where he works. He's one of the most respected. He really, as good a wrestler as he was, he's even a better employee in person. I can't even use words to explain, that guy. And Mike Davis was the same. Mike was a little bit more crazy, and but man, Tommy was, he was thick, he was tough. I would have never messed with him out on the street. They didn't really have to worry too much. Mike Davis, pulled them teeth out, and he looked like a hockey player, So, man, those guys were he's the best.
Yeah. What do you think it was? I know this is probably very hard to explain, but what do you think it was that made y'all so good together? Was it just timing in the right place, right time, right guys?
Well, I think it was that. I think when both teams respect each other, when both teams realize that you're only as good as that other team, and man, there was an admiration. Man, we were glad to be there. We're having the time of our lives, and they were too. It's just one of those deals. Just one little hint of jealousy gets in there. Anything like that can ruin something very good. And right. There's no telling how many great programs or feuds got ruined by, one person doing something stupid.
Right.
So, but man, again, I always had the utmost respect for those guys. And to this day, I hadn't talked to him in a little bit. I owe him a call, but I mean, man, I think he's the best.
Yeah, he's awesome. We had a good conversation with him, and I brought that up because I remember that, and he was like, well, I don't blame Davey too much because it was on Wikipedia as well. So, that was crazy timing about that. And, but I mean, you love your buddy, and you can tell by that post, man, that was a very nice thought.
Well, I tell you what, it was such a sense of relief when I heard his voice, man. I mean, that's pretty strong, death like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we're not spring chickens, but I mean, we're not the old folks home either,
Right,
I mean,
right.
And man, the last time I saw him, there was another guy, we were talking about guys who didn't never go full time, but could have easily done it. A guy out of Knoxville named Tim Fry.
Okay.
He lives real close to Tommy down there in Florida. And, me and him went and ate with Tommy, maybe a year ago. Tommy Lane looks as good or better now than he did then. I mean,
That's
he
awesome.
is lean, machine, son.
Yeah.
He looks great.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Tommy is awesome. We agree. But this name is our last name on the Davey Rich name game. And honestly, it's such a cool name because it's really outside. Even though it ties well to your story, it's really outside of all kinds of wrestling. But Marcus Dupree, man.
Oh, man, I still talk to Marcus. One day I'm riding down the road and my phone rings, and I don't really know the number, and this is where you got all the spam calls.
Right.
And the guy goes, hey, this is Marcus Dupree. I said, hey, Marcus, this is Terry Bradshaw. How can I help you? I heard somebody, pulling my leg. Because, you're talking about the most recruited football player ever.
Ever.
Yeah. Ever.
Yeah.
Still. As I ride down the road, I'm flipping on my TikTok, and the guys, talking about, the best that never was 30 for 30 that they just, it's been a couple of years. But, Marcus, they just named the high school football player of the year gets the Marcus Dupree Award.
That is awesome.
And so he's in the Hall of Fame, and I'm telling you, he was a natural. He came, we did the Memphis deal. We, Lawler was all behind it. Jim Ross loved Marcus, and, we could have definitely made a run up there, but I mean, people don't understand, all football players won't be wrestlers, and all wrestlers won't be football players. Neither one of those are easy.
Right.
So, I mean, the travel, and I mean, Marcus didn't realize you do it every day. You play, 10, 12 football games a year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you practice it. A lot of teams practice hard, but they ain't, practice is different in the game.
Right.
And I mean, a star player like Marcus, I promise you, they wasn't going to get Marcus hurt in a Tuesday or Wednesday practice.
Right.
So,
right.
No, great guy. He's still in Philadelphia, Mississippi. And, man, he always been a good buddy of mine. And, who knows if it had been a little younger, earlier in his life. And, he built up, he had some, pretty serious injuries in football. And, he was part of the concussion deal. He got some money from that from the NFL. And, I mean, people don't realize, if football players are getting all those concussions and they got helmets on, what about a poor guy like me and Johnny wrestling skyscrapers getting power bombed 32 days in a row by Sid Bishop.
I know. That is a good, oh man, you guys took it. That was the summer of '89. Yeah. Every night. I'm sorry. Well, if you have a second for one more question, I just look back here.
Man, I'm having fun.
Okay, cool. So May of '89, you show up in WCW Saturday Night, and you worked Terry Funk, and now he gave you a lot, especially since that month he became the biggest heel in the company after putting out Ric Flair. What do you remember about working Terry?
He didn't say one word to me before,
mm-hmm.
and I don't know if when a guy like that comes back through, a legend, not just another one of the boys, I've wrestled them all, from Rick Rude to Mr. Perfect, the Triple H, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
This dude might have been one of the biggest stars ever, and during Cactus Jacks, he tells a lot. And Eddie Gilbert loved Terry Funk too. So, Eddie is one of my favorites. So, I kind of, I get my admiration from him there. So we get out there, and it was like, if you'll watch the first of that match, he just immediately takes over on me. And I'm like, okay, here we go. He is, they are trying to get him ready for Flair, so, what I expect.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing I know, we're about 10 rows up into that audience, and man, I'm wearing him out, and we're trading punches, and I take over on him and run him back down and throw him over the rail, and we fought all over that building, and man, I thanked him about 1 million times, and he goes, hey, it makes me look better. When you get on there on TV, I don't care if it's Goldberg. When you just squash somebody, I don't think it makes you look good at all. But if it's back and forth, and you do a move or something and you win the match, okay.
Amen.
Even when I first started, do you remember Mike Jackson?
Yes, Action Mike. Yep.
Yeah, Action. Yeah. Well, man, he called me, and I'm like, I knew him from Georgia Championship Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
He says, I'm carrying a load of people to do a WWE TV taping. And this is when Hogan was on top wrestling Paul Orndorff, in the early 80s.
Oh,
Paul Orndorff, was chiseled, son.
The man.
So we go up, and I wrestle him. And Bobby the Brain Heenan, it's easy for me to say, he was his manager.
Mm-hmm.
And man, he pile drived me for the finish. And I shot out of this pile driver straight up in the air like I've been shot out of a missile. And I'm like, and he's going crazy. We get back to back, and him and Heenan come running over to me. How'd you do that? And I'm thinking, hell, I just was trying to hold on. He was so big and strong. It was in that big arena in Baltimore, and I'm looking up, and as far as I can see are people. I've never seen anything like it in my life. And, and then the next night, we're right over the river or whatever in Washington, D.C., same thing. They were selling out everywhere. That's when Hulkamania really was running wild.
Oh, yeah.
And, but, just to go back, some of those finishes and some of those guys were just so massive and so strong. I got the chance to wrestle him again in Smoky Mountain, and that's on YouTube too. Mm-hmm. But he had hurt his arm, and one arm was about as big as my arms, and the other, looked like, the Incredible Hulk. But he was torn a nerve in there, and but he still, he was just a tough guy, and, it just goes back to, being like a Terry Funk. And, man, anytime you wrestle those legends like that, you mentioned Austin Idol earlier. I got a chance to work him in a few towns, and, Abdullah the Butcher down in Puerto Rico, and just guys that, you grow up, just, seeing your whole life, and here you are in the ring with them, so it was awesome, man. That's why, man, I'm glad I did it.
Yeah.
I don't have any regret. Some people go, man, you used to get your brains beat out. And I'm like, well, somehow I survived.
You did. Thank you. Thank you for surviving, and thank you so much for telling your story, brother, and coming on and talking to me today.
Man,
That's been awesome.
I appreciate it, man. Man, I really appreciate you having me on, and if I can turn you on to any of these other guys, everybody's got their story, man, and
Thank
some
you.
of them, will tell the exact same story, and they're a little bit different than what the other guy told. But
Right.
I guess to the best of our memory, that's how it was.
Yeah. Hey, thank you. And I appreciate that. And I will definitely take you up on that, sir. It's been an absolute honor. Dave, you are such a good storyteller too, man. It's just an honor. Anytime I see that you're on another podcast, I listen to it. And now today you've been on mine, and I just can't thank you enough, man. You lived up to everything I expected.
Well, man, it's my pleasure, man, and good luck with the rest of them. Like I said, I've never helped you with any of the other guys. Most of the other guys enjoy them too. It's a good time for us to reminisce, and we all like to remember the good old days. Last but not least, give me back my pro wrestling.
Thank you, Davey. All right, that was the one and only David Haskins, a.k.a. Davey Rich. We'll be right back to wrap things up on Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling after these messages.
CHW is continuing the legacy of historic professional wrestling in Tennessee with monthly events at the Armory in Ashland City. CHW owner Mike Green has made it his mission to present the best pro wrestling shows in the Nashville area, and he has been delivering the goods. CHW Wrestling combines all the elements that Tennessee wrestling fans have come to expect. Action, suspense, athleticism, reality, stories, surprises, and excitement, all delivered by the finest professional wrestlers this state has to offer. Follow CHW Pro Wrestling on Facebook for the latest news, announcements, and show dates. And subscribe to Championship Productions on YouTube to see past events like the Ashland City Rumble and the Valentine's Massacre. Fun for the whole family with delicious and affordable concessions on site. Witness the action and excitement of CHW in Ashland City at the Armory. Family Wars, Love and Hate, Championship Gold. A CHW event is everything you're looking for in a night of live entertainment.
All right, guys, we're back. And once again, man, the guest of the day was David Haskins, a.k.a. Davey Rich. I got to say this. I mean, up there with like Jeff Daniels and a few other guys, David Haskins is possibly the easiest interview ever. Brother just tells his story, and you just got to hang on. And I thought it was awesome. I hope you all enjoyed it. Davey, we appreciate you as always, brother. And can't wait to talk to you again sometime down the line, brother. Thank you so much. I hope you all enjoyed that as much as we did. A few more things before we go, guys. Captain's Corner, of course, can't miss it this weekend. Captain's Corner, GrappleCon 4 back to Lutz, April 11th, Residence Inn, Tampa Suncoast Parkway. It's this weekend. Get down there, do it now. It's time. Austin Idol's there. Jerry Lawler's there. Dutch Mantell, Lord Humongous, Tommy Lane. So many other stars, the Mountie, the Godwins. Just go. It's going to be worth it. I promise. This weekend, Lutz, Florida. I'm sure you can get a ticket for a plane ride now. Hurry up. Just get down there. Hope y'all enjoy it. I hope y'all have a blast down there. Can't wait to hear all about it. All right, y'all, to continue on from that, the next one, you've heard me talking about this one before, the Gideon's Warriors Ministry. Guys, if you're interested in bringing them to your church, if you're a church leader, a deacon, a pastor, an elder, whatever, contact Pastor Rick Reynolds at icw2009@hotmail.com. They tell great pro wrestling stories from their time in the business, and they also tell their testimonies, which is awesome. Contact them for your church today. All right, y'all. Guys, Thank you so much for the ones that have already done this, but most importantly, it's very important. Our good buddy and friend of the show, Ben Jordan, just had back surgery, and it was very successful. He's very sore, but he's starting to feel better, and we're just so thankful for that. He's still fighting the fight. Keep him in your prayers. Keep his whole family in your prayers. They're such good people. We thank so much of them from the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast. They all mean so much to us. Just continue to pray for Ben. I know it means a lot to him, and it means as much to us. So I love you, Ben. Hope you're feeling okay today, buddy. All right, y'all. One more thing. Next episode, I'm not going to spill it here, but if you really, really want to know as soon as anyone can possibly know, go to @GMBMPW on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and X, and you'll find out as soon as it's humanly possible. Other than that, thank you all so much for liking, sharing, subscribing, following. All that means so much to us, but most importantly, we just thank you for listening. All right, y'all. Thanks again to the one and only David Haskins, aka Davey Rich. This has been Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, and we'll see y'all next time.
Don't forget.
And Mr. Sully, y'all have a little VCR of the Riches against the Rock and Roll RPM. We can roll this VCR from right now to Knoxville Coliseum. Here it is right here. This is me and Johnny going against the RPMs right here, right down in Knoxville at the Coliseum. They got Johnny going a little bit right here, but at the very beginning, Johnny had a friend.
Gordon, the thing about it is, we've been going after these belts for a long time. Every time it seems like they come up with some way to get out of losing them belts. I don't know how they do it. I'm not blaming you. I'm not blaming the promotion, and I'm not blaming the referee. But somehow, every time they manage to come out and keep them belts.
Right here, Gordon, here is the tag. Now, right here, I want you to look. Mike Davis and myself are the legal men in the ring, right? You can watch on here. Later on, we're going to have a little... It's a little referee. I'm not blaming the referee. I know he has a hard job. But right here, look.
Right here, we're giving them all they got. Davey's going wild on what's happening. Right here.
Here we go.
We got them going right here.
This is near the end of the match. Now, remember, me and Mike Davis are the legal men in the ring right now. Okay, here we go. He got me outside the ring.
Well, obviously, we've got a four-way match going on right now. As you pointed out, you two are the legal one.
The legal man, Mike Davis. 1, 2, 3.
Davey's right there in the middle of the ring. Right. 1, 2, 3. We champions right there, right or wrong.
Right there. We were the legal men in the ring.
Well, the referee's decision holds, obviously.
Yeah, it's true. And we're not blaming the referee at all. No. What we're saying is, every time we wrestle them RPMs, they sneak out. They come up with some little dirty trick. Well, we're getting sick and tired of them. I don't think that kind of thing. That's right. You ain't gonna tell me nothing.
Hey, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Hold on a second. Wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute. Hold it. Get a camera over here. Get a camera over here. Oh, this is disgusting. Man, they're tarring and feathering Davey Rich. Now, they've got to get some order restored. Hey, we'll be back. We'll be back in just a minute. This is terrible.
With a tear in my eye, this is the greatest moment in my life.
We'll see you next week. And until then, so long for now.
This has been a James Rock Street production.